you.
Right? She's taking calculus? Oh, okay. Thank you. What she's taking?
I did take math in college out here.
Oh, okay.
I told her she should have done calculus.
Did you tell her what happened to you last year?
Like you recruiting me to the.
No, I chase you down every day. So Chase is always in my class last year, so he's just hanging out and taking statistic and doing statistic homework in my class, like after school. Like he was here, always here grinding. Like he's been here for 2 years. You just didn't know about it. He's just doing statistic homework. Every time I saw her, I was like, Chase, you want to take calculus? And he's like, no, I don't want to take calculus. And I'm gonna go karate, change your schedule. And he never showed up to my class again. He's like, don't change my schedule. And every time I was like, karate, change his schedule. It was funny. And then at the end of the year, I went up to her. I was like, Chase, just be honest with you. I really want you to take my class.
I'll take your class.
I know, and he's doing good. So really good. So, one of the things that you got to be able to do is start now to the next test. This coming test is kind of mellow. So this is where and good test score can come in. But the far as and then after that it's all pretty mellow. It's that optimization is a little bit higher, and then gonna be at the end. It's gonna be area and volume. That's hardest one. I feel like that's the hardest one. That's where people get 10s and 20s. You can. So what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna talk about a graph. So there's a graph here. And let's just say between A and B. And let's just say if I have this, I have something like this. Okay. There's a point here. So here, 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 here is our point of interest. Start with a critical number here. This is a relative minimum. Wait, I'm gonna make sure I record it. Okay. I did right. All right. This is relative minimum, and this is relative maximum. And this a relative minimum. So what's qualified to be a relative minimum and maximum? It has to be a increasing followed with decreasing. So it has to go up and come back down in order to say that's a relative max. It has to be decreasing and increasing in order to say that's relative min. Okay, so it must be like a peak or like a vertex.
So it has to have a horizontal tangent.
Exactly. That's actually a perfect way to say it. Thank you for Ethan to mention that horizontal tangent. It has to have a horizontal tangent in order to qualify to be a relative max and relative min. But not all horizontal tangent are relative min and max. For example, sometimes you can have something like this, that this is not relative max and relative min, because even though it's a horizontal tangent there, but does not qualify for that. But all the relative maximum minimum are horizontal tangent. Well, most of them, at least. There's one exception where it's not. It's like all square are rectangle, but not all rectangle are square. So not all horizontal tangent are relative maximum min.
Oh, would that
but
be if it's like a absolute value kind of thing?
Yeah, you can have that. That's called a not differentiable. So that's good that you point those out. Um, so for me, like I think Ethan, you just screw up with some numbers on a question about radians and changing angles, and you are definitely like one of the most intuitive student in here. So that one test does not define how you are. I know. Okay. So this is relative min, relative max, relative min. And I hear this point here, oops, my bad. This point here is the absolute max. Where's absolute min? The first relative. So some people says, can relative minimum be absolute? Yes. So absolute is the highest and the lowest. So in this particular point is absolute minimum. And they can be relative minimum at same times absolute minimum. But what's that conclude is if you're relative, you still had to compare all other minimum. And actually you had to compare not only the minimum, you had to compare the endpoint as well. Because sometimes endpoint are lower than you, right? Imagine that that just says I don't know. Let's just say Ding is the tallest person in that group, but is Ding taller than Jack? No, because you didn't compare with the endpoint yet. You didn't compare with everybody else. So he's if Ding how tall you are, and Jack 6'3". So okay, so 5'11" is definitely tallest in that group. So he's a relative maximum, but is he absolute maximum? No, you had to compare everybody else. The endpoint, that means everyone else in here has to be compared. So including the endpoint. So you had to compare to Jack, you'll find out he's not the tallest. He's only tallest in that group. So he's a relative maximum, but not absolute maximum. Absolute maximum is probably going to be Jack because he's 6'3". Nobody's past 6'3" here, right? Vincent, are you 6'3"? Chase, in my mind, you are 8 foot tall.
No, me.
Yo, man. You have bigger heart than everybody else. That's how it matters, right?
Yeah.
So, um, wait, Vincent, how tall are you? You're pretty tall too. 6 foot. Irvy's like, I'm tall. Right, Irvy?
Yeah.
You're 6'3". um, so absolute maximum, absolute min. So the highest. So you want to compare the endpoint as well. Endpoint is very crucial because a lot of time endpoint are the highest or the lowest. So not only you compare all other relative, you want to compare with the endpoint. Is that okay?
Did you say that the endpoint could be maximum or minimum?
It can be absolute, not relative though. So endpoint cannot be a relative because you cannot go up and come back down because it either is end with up or end with
But
down.
It can be absolute.
Yeah, it can be absolute. Does that make sense? Okay, so far as terminology goes, for ACE and IB, they called it local here. They called it local. Local is they call it local minimum, and sometimes the AP exam they will show up the word local. Um, and absolute they call it the global. Kind of makes sense. Global is like everywhere. So global max and global min. So, but you don't have to worry about global because I feel like AP never use global, but I do see AP uses local minimum and local maximum. Okay, so let's talk about EVT. EVT is stand for extreme value theorem. If f is continuous on closed interval A and B, then F has both absolute max and absolute min. Now, why do they have to be continuous? It has to be continuous for a couple of reasons. Also, second thing you have to pay attention to, this is inclusive. So including A, so it must be a solid dot. So include. So it's a solid dot. Now, why do they have a? So imagine if it's not continuous, right? So what's the first example you think? So this is where EBT does not work. EBT not work at the following cases. That just says if it's not continuous. Which example that you can think of is not continuous? What? Absolute value is continuous. It could be jump. Okay. But what's the most obvious one that you can say is not continuous? It could be open circle, but right now just say it's not continuous. What's the things that's not continuous you can think of? No. A jump. It could be a jump, but I'm trying to say like most obvious one. Huh? The most obvious one. Vertical asymptote. Good. So imagine that you have vertical asymptote. Can you have a absolute maximum minimum? No, because lowest could be negative infinity. The biggest is could be infinity.
But is that not like a?
So EBT doesn't not work. It doesn't have a maximum or minimum values. Okay.
You can't set infinity like a maximum.
No, you cannot. Infinity is not definable. How big is infinity? So let's just say A and B here. Now I'm gonna have a hole on the bottom. And this hole is located around like, I don't know. Let's say located here. Now, here's the thing. What's the relative minimum? It's a 4? It's negative 4?
It wouldn't be open.
Huh?
Would it be infinitely close to -4?
Yeah, so infinite close to -4. The problem is that is you can't really define what's the absolute minimum because it could be -3.9 if you are being not very precise, right? It could be -3.99. It could be -3.999. It could be 1,009, a billion nines, a trillion nines. I really cannot define for sure where's the lowest value here. So therefore, there is nothing over there. So you cannot have a minimum. You can have maximum because maximum here is absolute max, right? This part is absolute max. But this part is the absolute min? No, it's not.
Because it's not close circle.
It's not, yeah, it's not a closed circle. If it's a closed circle, yes. Now, why do they have the inclusive endpoints? Because can I have a graph that goes like this? And I say my endpoint is my highest one. And so I just say if I have this point here. Do I have a max? Because I cannot have a max because I cannot define my max as 4.9 or 4.99 or 4.999. I can't really define that. So then, yeah, they don't have this. EBT does not work. So it has to be continuous. It does not happen to be differentiable, however, because I can have a absolute value. I still can have minimal, but I have to be continuous. The only way I can be continuous, for example, I have continuous function but not differentiable, but I can still have minimum and maximum. I can have something like this, right? Can I have this as the absolute max and absolute min? And that's fine. I can have the vertex that below the endpoint too. So it doesn't really matter. So this, it works because it's continuous, but it does not happen to be differentiable. So that's EVT. This is how EVT for you. The next thing you need to know is what is a critical number? Now, there are two things to find critical number. On AP exam, you have to understand what is critical number, because sometimes they say, hey, can you find critical number for me? There's two definitions for critical number. The first definition is f prime of x is equal to 0. Then you say, wait, f prime of x equal to 0 is also something else. Horizontal tangent, right? So this is a horizontal tangent. Is a critical number. So f prime of x is equal to 0. The second definition, though, f prime of x is equal to undefined. That's vertical tangent, exactly. So critical number can occur at horizontal tangent, which is technically right here. You could have a relative maximum, relative minimum, but that's critical number. It could have this. You can have a relative minimum, because that's what a critical number was undefined. That means you must have a fraction. And bottom of the fraction, so it must be a fractions. And bottom, the denominator of fraction is equal to 0. Denominator of the f prime of x is equal to 0. Denominator, not the numerator. Numerator equal to 0 is a horizontal tangent. The denominator equal to 0 is vertical tangent, but it has to be derivative. Am I going too fast? Is this okay? Okay. Now we're gonna go in to find out, hey, the textbook wants you to know there was a mathematician named Pierre de Fermat. Anybody know Fermat? Mathematician Pierre de Fermat. Before he died, he posed a problem. It's called the last Fermat theorem. I think he posed on his grave in the question that nobody able to solve until 1990s, which is 300 years later. They had to use computer algorithm to solve it by another person named Andrew something. 1993. He's waiting for 300 years. Nobody able to solve the problem. Now this Professor Andrew spent like all his lifetime to try to solve that problem, and he won like a Nobel Peace Prize, or Nobel Prize for the mathematics. Is Nobel Prize or yeah, Nobel Prize. So yeah, his name is Fermat. But anyway, he has a lot of contribution in calculus as well. But anyway, for that is how to find extrema in the closed interval. Now we gotta define what extrema is. What is extrema?
Moral extreme.
So absolute maximum or absolute minimum. So absolute maximum or absolute minimum is gonna be the highest point or the lowest point. That's called extrema. So in your math test, could I say find extrema? That just means find me the maximum and minimum. It lists down with 4 steps. 1, it must find critical number first, because all the maximum minimum occur in a critical number. So you must find critical number. But how do you know if they are highest or lowest? You have to plug in. You have to evaluate. Evaluate not f prime of x, but f of x using critical number. So plug in a critical number into f of x. Third, evaluate. What else we have to compare with? We can compare with all the relative minimum, but what things we had to compare? What else we had to compare with? Why the endpoint? Yeah, so your ending might be higher value than your relative. So you have to evaluate the endpoints of f of x. So you have to plug in the endpoint, which is in this case a or b. You have to plug in the original function to compare. Third, the last one, 4, build a table. And this is for FRQ on AP exam. Okay, it's for FRQ. It's going to give you 1 easy point if you just build a table. Compare the endpoint evaluation, and the critical number evaluation. So evaluate the critical number and endpoint. So here I'm going to give you a question. I'm going to ask you to do the exact same thing. I'm going to say, hey, can you find extrema between -1 to 2? So can you find the extrema? So first thing you have to what? Find critical number, which is take a delta so they go to 0.
That negative 3x.
3x to the 4 minus 4x to the third. Okay, I really need coffee. Build a table. Did you build a table? Show you how to build a table.
768. 768 is it?
Build a table. Build a table. Okay, so you had to find critical number first. Did you find critical number? Where is critical number? 1 and 0. Good job. So take a derivative. 12x to the third minus 12x squared. Set that equal to 0. 12x squared and x minus 1. X squared equal to 0. X minus 1 equal to 0. X equal to 1. X equal to 0. You find the table. Now, the table is like this. On AP exam, you want a justification points. And this is how you earn justification point. You're going to plug in -1 and 2 because that's the endpoint you're going to evaluate. You're going to plug in the 0 and 1 as opposed everything. Now, what happens if you plug in -1 into the function?
It gets 7.
You get 7. Very nice. What happens if you plug in 0?
You'll get 0.
0. What happens if you plug in 1?
2.
What happens if you plug in 2? 16. So this table is called justification because on AP exam they say justify where is the absolute maximum and absolute minimum. Now be careful how you write. Absolute maximum occurred at x equal to 2. However, absolute maximum value, which is more likely they're going to ask this way, absolute maximum value is equal to 16. Now, one of the training teacher, her name, I'll give her credit. Her name is Suzanne. She teach calculus for 34 years. She has a very good result in South Florida. I really like her. At first, she's my ops, but we become best friends. So we still contact each other even till now. After like I met her like 4 years, 5 years ago. I have a lot of ops. Value. She says never told student value. Told students that's YU. Draw a line underneath. That's Y value. So whenever AP exam asks something value, that means the Y, not the X. So if I ask you what's absolute maximum value, underline the value and draw a line right underneath it. That's YU. Is that okay? So absolute min occur. Usually they never ask whether it occur at x equal to 1, but absolute minimum value is what? -1. So you have to make sure you write down as a -1 here in order to get credit. YU. Okay. The next question is a little bit harder because critical number on this one, it's kind of interesting. So f of x equal to 2x minus 3x to the 2/3. And they say, hey, between -1 to 3, can you find critical numbers? Can you find extremas? So let's say find extrema. But the problem is this. Most of you guys can only find one critical number, but there are two critical numbers here. There are two. Can you find a second one?
A fraction.
2/3.
Or
2/3. Most of you guys can only find one critical number. There is a second one. Did you guys find the second one? Remember, how many definition for critical number? 2. How do you get a second one? Interesting. It turns out that if you take a derivative here, you're going to get 2 minus 3 times 2 third times x to the negative 1 third. And that's equal to 2 minus 2x to the negative 1 third. From what it looks at like in naked eye, that you see that x is equal to 1, that's going to be the only one. But the problem is there's more story to this because f prime of x can be undefined as well. So can I rewrite this in a way that I can combine those two fractions? So it will be 2 minus 2 over x to the 1 third, right? Can I combine fractions so that becomes x to the 1 third on the bottom and 2x to 1 third minus 2. Now it becomes fraction. So the numerator equal to 0 is your horizontal tangent. The denominator equal to 0 is what? Yep. So x is equal to 0, x is equal to 1. So there are two critical numbers. Now, do I always test that? It's really hard to test that because the only time it worked was x to the 2 third power. But you do need to know that they are both. The second way to find it, though, is knowing how to factor out the most negative exponents. So if you factor out the most negative exponent here, and then that will give you a x to the 1 third here. And this is gonna be minus 1. So eventually you're gonna get 2 x to the 1 third minus 1 over x to the 1 third. You're also gonna get 2 critical numbers as opposed to 1. So last one. How much time I have? Wait, how much time I have? Okay. F of x equal to 2 sine of x minus cosine of 2x between 0 to 2 pi. I want you to find all the critical number and compare all the critical number and endpoints. But there's a lot of critical number in this case. There are a total of 4. What's the record of a football team? Are they good?
Yeah, we're maybe they lost one game. I don't know, like
Which game they lost to? They called who? Apopka? Oh. Do they beat Dr. Philip?
yeah, we beat
What was the score?
24-0 when I left like third quarter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it ended 31 something.
They beat Freedom that day. And I have 2 kids that I tutor. It's in a Freedom band. It sucks. Sucks really bad because they're on the opposite team. Both send me a message. You watch it again? You should get 4 critical numbers.
Do we have to use double angle here or no?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Taiwan,
Well,
you need to change your haircut back. And that way you can get higher test score. That old haircut give you higher test score. This one just like, eh.
this is it. Double angle thing first or after you take the sword?
I will take a derivative first before I'll do it later. Okay, I'm just gonna do it here. F prime of x, 2 cosine of x, and that's gonna be, what's derivative of cosine of 2x? There were 2 layers, so that's gonna be positive sine of 2x times 2. Yeah, there's chain rule, and that's equal to 2 cosine of x plus, since they are 2 different things, so it's gonna be 2 times 2 sine of x cosine of x. That's how you use double angle identity. So you can factor out 2 cosine of x here, and what you get left? 1 plus 2 sine of x. So where cosine of x equal to 0, and then 1 plus 2 sine of x equal to 0, sine of x is equal to -1/2. X is equal to what? When does x equal to 0? Cosine of x equal to 0. No.
Oh wait, that's the wrong way. It's
Pi divided by 2. What else? 3 pi over 2. 11 pi over 6 is one of them. There's another one. 7 pi over 6. So technically, you can write this table here, x and f of x. You can type in 0 and 2 pi here, and you're gonna evaluate pi over 2, 7 pi over 6, 11 pi, 3 pi over 2, and 11 pi over 6. So I'm gonna give you an evaluation. This is -1, 3, -3 over 2, -1, -3 over 2, and -1. If we evaluate, you're gonna find out there is 2 minimums. So this is a min, and this is a max value, and minimum value is -3 over 2.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Very extreme. Like I don't. I'm extreme. I'm extreme liberal. Everything is conservative, but it's not that different. Like in global warming, I'm extremely left.
What do you mean global warming?
I believe in global warming. It's not. Tell your presence. Your mom.
Yesterday they all do look the same because
I'm liberal. I'm conservative. You should be above 18 to make that decision. That's me.
yeah.
But some people don't agree with that. No, actually, that's why I don't think it.
Yeah, I'm not I'm conservative. I'm conservative, but I mean, no Christian.
So, yeah. Well, I don't make extreme jokes. I just make jokes. But anyway. You guys have hospital? Why you guys all wearing blue?
Yeah.
I'm showing my legs. Everybody. No.
How are you? You all are wearing the same pants.
Yeah.
Assuming that was a planned thing.
Yeah. She's the one that. No, they're actually all similar.
See what I got?
You can see them after school.
Okay.
My diet's like been the same. I'm not.
Corbin Lewis.
Corbett Lewis, yeah. Who's pissing you off? Who make an Asian joke? I'm not offended. I'm vegetarian. What did he say to you? You gotta address to him. You gotta say this is not allowed. Like some people just don't know. Huh? Okay, then you gotta tell him. Like, okay, so you cannot complain about a person if you don't tell them. No, you should. You should. That's why you should. No, that's the thing. Like a lot of times, like people just no. You say, dude, that's not respectful, and that's all you have to say. And then you have to say, what is, like a lot of time, like okay, so I don't agree with something. I say something,
Yeah.
and that's why Deborah hates me because. No, you don't have to be confrontation. You can say, hey, look, I know that you're not meant to be that way, but it's perceived that way.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of a little bit passive aggressive, but it's something that it's okay to say something, especially if you're offended. If I feel offended, I'm gonna be like on you.
It's not like offensive. It's just kind of annoying because it's
Do
not.
you have
it's
class
not,
to go to?
No, I have lunch. Oh, you have passes now. Who got you those?
I don't know. I find it on the floor. I was like, I cannot find it. I was like, it's on the floor. Who's cooking lunch here?
Oh,
I have to come back to school.
Devin, you have to share your lunch if you cook lunch here. He says what? What did he say? Okay, what did he say?
I can't remember what he said. Like in physics, like he just constantly brings me up in conversation. I don't know why.
Like what?
In physics, I was doing my test, and he's like, "What did you think of this?" And he looks over at me, and I'm like, "I'm not really doing this test, man. I don't even know what he was talking about."
Yeah, but you gotta tell them if they're offensive.
Yeah.
So it's your fault for not saying anything. You have to say something. When you say seriously something, you say something. And it's okay to be outsmart them too. What's up? No, but I can grade it. But I have other things to do too. So that, but I'm gonna have to grade it.
What they're saying is acceleration is the first derivative. No, that's what they're saying. This equals a negative b. No, the b is b. No, they're saying it's equal to negative. This is negative b. That's what they're saying. So then what they're doing is it's weird. I watched the this. You can divide b into b here and multiply dt. You get that. Where are things maximum? Okay, let's put it that. Yeah. I think you're overcomplicating. So what about max value? You say that's why are you doing this? This is math. Oh, physics? Yeah. That.
Oh boy, you need to learn how to factor.
I'm waiting. I'm trying to go to the door.
So the minimum is. Wait a second.
Yeah, but it would still be like it's a 5-12.
Oh, I say some shitty things.
So